15 people, Delphira. And why do I have to take care of everything?
Mom, I need you to handle Christmas dinner this year. It will be 15 people from Croyden's family, and you know how you cook. Delphira's voice sounded casual over the phone, as if she were asking Marjoren Whitlow to pick up milk from the grocery store. Marjoren, 72 years old, felt the world pause for a moment as she processed her daughter's words. 72 years of life, 45 years of marriage, 30 years a widow, and now this. 15 people, Delphira. And why do I have to take care of everything? Marjoren asked, gripping the phone until her knuckles turned white. From the other end of the line, she heard Delphira sigh impatiently, like a spoiled child throwing a tantrum. Oh, Mom, because you have free time. We work all day. Besides, Croyden's house is too small to host his entire family. Yours is perfect. It has that big dining room and spacious kitchen. And let us be honest, no one cooks turkey like you do. Before we go on, do not forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We bring you new stories every day. Hit like and let us know what city you are watching from in the comments. Marjoren closed her eyes and leaned against her kitchen wall. The same kitchen where she had prepared thousands of meals for Delphira when she was little, where she had waited up when her daughter came home late from teenage parties, where she had cried silently after her husband's funeral. It was as if her daughter had completely forgotten who was the mother and who was the daughter. Delphira, honey, I am not a domestic worker. I am your mother. Please, Mom, do not be dramatic. It is just a family dinner. You can buy everything, and I will give you the money afterward. Croyden already talked to his mom, Irelda, and she is bringing the desserts. You just need to take care of the main course, side dishes, appetizers, and clean the house before and after. You know the usual. The usual. Marjoren felt a bitter laugh rise in her throat. When had it become normal for her to be the servant of her own family? When had she accepted being treated as if her time, her energy, her dignity were worth nothing? And Mom, one more thing. Croyden's family is a bit particular about food, nothing too spicy. Aunt Vianette cannot eat gluten. Cousin Caden is vegetarian. And Unelda only eats very well done meat. Oh, and we need red wine, but not too expensive, because it is a lot of money in the end. Marjoren remained silent, feeling each word from Delphira like a slap. It was not just the Christmas dinner. It was a lifetime of small humiliations that had accumulated like raindrops into a storm. It was the 15 people said so naturally, as if preparing food for 15 demanding strangers was as simple as boiling water for tea. And what are you going to do? Delphira, while I am cooking for your husband's entire family. Oh, Mom, I will be there helping, of course. I do not know. I will set the table and serve the drinks. Croyden will be busy tending to his family. You know how these family gatherings are. Marjoren felt something break inside her chest. It was not her heart. It was something deeper. It was her patience, her infinite capacity to say yes, her need to be the perfect mother who never caused problems. For 72 years, she had been the woman who solved everything, adapted to everything, who smiled even when her world was falling apart. Delphira, I have a question for you. When was the last time Croyden and his family invited me to something? When was the last time they treated me like the grandmother of their future children, and not as the free domestic worker? Mom, do not start that. They appreciate you very much. It is just, well, you know how Croyden is with his things. He is shy. Croyden, who had never had trouble borrowing money when he needed to fix his car. Croyden, who had never been shy about letting Marjoren pay for dinner when the four of them went out together. Croyden, who had never been shy about using her house as a free hotel when his parents visited from out of town. "All right, Delphira, I understand perfectly." Marjoren's voice had changed. It no longer sounded like the usual understanding and available mother. It sounded cold, calculated, and entirely different. Delphira seemed to notice because her tone became sweeter, more manipulative. "That means, yes, Mom. You will take care of everything. I promise it is going to be a beautiful Christmas, and everyone will remember how amazing you are at cooking." Marjoren looked out her kitchen window at the garden she had cared for decades, the roses she had planted when Delphira was a child, the rusty swing where she had pushed her granddaughter, who now lived in another city and barely called anymore. Her whole world had become small, reduced to being useful to others. "Delphira, my love, I have news for you. Your husband and his relatives are coming for Christmas." "Perfect. Then I am going on a trip, and you can take care of everyone because I am not a babysitter, much less an employee." The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. Marjoren could almost hear her daughter's panicked thoughts. She imagined Delphira's pale face, her eyes wide with horror at the possibility of having to organize a dinner for 15 demanding people herself. "What, Mom? You cannot be serious. A trip where with whom? Mom, this is ridiculous. Everything is already planned." "Everything is planned by you, Delphira, without asking me if I wanted to be part of those plans." Marjoren hung up the phone with trembling hands and stared at the receiver as if it were a strange object. For the first time in decades, she had said no. For the very first time in her life, she had set boundaries, and the feeling was as terrifying as it was liberating. She walked slowly toward her living room, where photographs of a lifetime watched her from the shelves. There was Delphira, at 5 years old, in her pink polka dot dress, smiling toothlessly in the garden. There was her late husband, Robert, handsome and young in his military uniform, before life hit them with bills, illnesses, and disappointments. There were photos of Delphira's first Christmases when Marjoren believed that being a mother was all she needed to be happy. When had all this begun? When had she stopped being Marjoren, the woman with her own dreams and desires, to become simply Delphira's mom? She remembered the day Robert died 30 years ago. Delphira was barely 15 years old, and Marjoren promised herself that she would be both father and mother, that her daughter would never lack anything, and she kept that promise. She worked double shifts at the factory until her hands became rough and her shoulders permanently stooped. She sold her wedding jewelry to pay for Delphira's college. She gave up the possibility of falling in love again because Delphira needed stability. She swallowed her loneliness for 30 long years because her daughter was the most important thing in her life. When Delphira married Croyden 5 years ago, Marjoren thought she could finally live a little for herself, that her daughter, now adult and established, would no longer need so much from her. How naive she had been. The first favor came 2 months after the wedding. "Mom, can you lend us $2,000 for the down payment on Croyden's car? We will pay you back next month." Next month never came, but more favors did. "Mom, can you watch the house while we are on a late honeymoon in Cancun? Mom, can you host Croyden's parents when they visit? Our house is too small." And Marjoren always said yes, always smiled, always remained available. She walked to her bedroom and opened her nightstand drawer where she kept her important documents. There was the notebook where she recorded all family expenses. For years, she had kept meticulous records, not out of distrust, but out of habit, as a working woman who knew the value of every single cent. The numbers hit her like a punch to the stomach. In the last 5 years, she had spent over $15,000 on Delphira and Croyden. $15,000 that had come from her pension, from her lifelong savings, from the money she had carefully put aside for her own medical expenses when she got older. Croyden's birthday dinner, $10. Delphira's car repair, $800. Christmas shopping for the whole family, $950. Flights for Delphira and Croyden to visit the in-laws, $600. Delphira's rent when Croyden lost his job, $1,200 for 3 months. And never, not once, had they asked how she was, if she needed anything, if she had enough money for her medications, or to fix the leaky roof that she had been ignoring for 2 years because she preferred to prioritize Delphira's emergencies. She sat on the edge of her bed and for the first time in years allowed herself to cry. She did not cry out of sadness. She cried out of rage. Rage at Delphira for taking her for granted. Rage at Croyden for treating her like a free domestic worker. But most of all, rage at herself for letting this happen. The phone rang. It was Delphira again. "Mom, please, you cannot do this to me. I already told Croyden you were going to cook. He already invited his whole family. What am I going to do? Now I do not even know how to cook for so many people." "Learn," Marjoren replied with a calm she did not know she possessed. "Mom, this is absurd. Cancel that ridiculous trip. Where are you going to go alone? With what money?" "Let us be realistic. You cannot travel alone at your age." At her age, as if being 72 had automatically turned her into an invalid who needed permission to make her own decisions, as if being a grandmother forced her to forever give up being a woman with her own desires. "Delphira, I have enough money to travel, the same money I have been spending on you for years. What are you talking about? We have never asked you for money." The lie was so blatant that Marjoren felt nauseous. Had Delphira really forgotten all the loans she never repaid, or had she simply decided they did not count because they came from her mother Delphira? "I have all the receipts, all the proof. Every cent I have spent on you for 5 years is documented." Silence. Then Delphira's voice smaller, more insecure. "Mom, that is different. We are family. Families help each other. You are right, my love. Families help each other. When was the last time you helped me?" More silence. Marjoren knew Delphira was desperately doing a mental inventory, trying to remember some gesture of generosity toward her mother. She would not find it because it simply did not exist. "I am always here for you, Mom. I always call you. You call me when you need something. There is a difference." The truth hung in the air like an accusation. Marjoren got up and walked to her window, looking at the street where she had lived for 40 years. The same street where she had raised Delphira, where she had mourned Robert's death, where she had grown old, waiting for someone to treat her with the respect she deserved. "Tomorrow, I am going to the travel agency," she finally said, "and you are going to have to figure it out yourself." That night, Marjoren could not sleep. She lay awake staring at her bedroom ceiling, listening to the familiar sounds of her house, the hum of the old refrigerator, the persistent drip from the bathroom she had never fixed because there was always something more urgent to pay for the creak of the old timbers settling with the years. At 3 o'clock in the morning, she got up and walked to the kitchen. She brewed a cup of chamomile tea, the same kind she used to make Delphira when she was little and had nightmares. How ironic that now it was she who had nightmares. But her nightmares were real and had names. They were called ingratitude, emotional abuse, and the terrible feeling of having wasted 30 years of her life being the person everyone needed but no one valued. She sat at the kitchen table with her steaming cup and began to remember. Not the sweet memories she had been feeding for years, but the others, the ones she had buried deep because they hurt too much. She remembered the first time Delphira had made her feel small. It was 3 years ago at her neighbor's baby shower. Delphira had arrived late as always, and when someone commented on how elegant Marjoren looked in her new dress, Delphira had said, "Oh yes, Mom bought new clothes. I hope she did not spend too much. You know how old people are with money. Old people." As if being old was synonymous with being irresponsible. As if her 72 years of experience working and managing money meant nothing compared to Delphira's 28 years living from favor to favor. She remembered the day Croyden had eaten at her house for the very first time when he had just started dating Delphira. Marjoren had cooked for hours. Chicken with green sauce, saffron rice, refried beans, handmade tortillas, and 3 different types of salsa. Croyden had eaten without looking up from his plate, without a thank you or a "this is delicious." In the end, he had audibly burped and said, "It is all right, but my mom Irelda puts more chili in hers." Delphira had laughed. Her own daughter had laughed at the insult to her mother. She remembered all the Christmases when she had cooked for 10, 12, even 15 people for Croyden's family, while they sat in her living room watching television and criticizing everything. The house was too cold, the music too loud, the decorations too simple, and Delphira never defended her. Never. She remembered the day she had to go to the emergency room because she had deeply cut her hand while cooking for Croyden's birthday. Delphira had arrived at the hospital 2 hours later, not because she had been busy, but because she had been at the beauty salon. "Oh, Mom, was all that drama really necessary? It is just a few stitches, just a few stitches." As if her mother's pain was always something insignificant, something to dismiss. She remembered when she had sold Robert's engagement ring, the only valuable keepsake she had of her late husband, to lend Delphira $3,000 when Croyden had lost his job. Delphira had promised to pay her back in 3 months. That had been 2 years ago. She remembered the time she had been sick with the flu for a week, so ill she could barely get out of bed. And Delphira had not come to see her even once. But the very same day she felt better, Delphira had called her to ask her to water the plants at her house because they were going on a romantic weekend getaway. And she remembered with a clarity that surprised her the exact moment when she had stopped being a person to become only a function. It had been the day of Aunt Ruth Mare Whitlow's funeral, Robert's sister. Marjoren had been crying because she terribly missed her sister-in-law, with whom she had shared so many years of confidences and laughter. Delphira had approached, but not to comfort her. She had approached to whisper in her ear, "Mom, stop crying so much. People will think you are overreacting. Besides, I need you to go early tomorrow to pick up my dress from the dry cleaner. I need you to go, not could you or would you mind, but I need you to go as one tells an employee." Her tea had grown cold in her hands, but Marjoren had not noticed. She was too busy processing 30 years of small deaths, small humiliations. Countless moments when she had swallowed her dignity to maintain family peace. The phone rang again. It was 4 a.m. "Mom, are you awake? I cannot sleep thinking about this. Croyden is furious with me. He says, how am I going to sort out dinner? His parents already bought their plane tickets. You cannot do this to me." Delphira's voice sounded desperate, but Marjoren no longer felt the automatic urge to rescue her. For the first time in her life, Her daughter's problems sounded like problems her daughter had created and that her daughter could solve. Delphira, it is 4 a.m. I know, but I just cannot sleep. Mom, please let us be reasonable. We can find a solution. What if I pay for all the ingredients? What if I help you more in the kitchen? As if the problem was the amount of help and not the fundamental fact that they had planned to use her house, her time, her energy, and her money without even asking if she agreed. Delphira, the solution is very simple. Have dinner at your house. But our house is too small. Then rent a hall. That costs money. And my time, my house, and my work do not cost money. Do they? Silence. A long, heavy silence that held 30 years of unspoken truths. Mom, I do not know what is wrong with you lately. You are being very strange, very selfish. Selfish. The word every woman who dares to set boundaries hears sooner or later. The word used to make women feel guilty for having their own needs. Delphira, I am hanging up now, and do not call me again until you have found a solution that does not involve me. Mom. Marjoren hung up the phone and unplugged it from the wall. The silence that followed was the most beautiful she had heard in years. The next morning, Marjoren woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. At first, she thought it was anxiety, but after a few minutes, she realized it was something she had not felt in decades: freedom. For the first time in 30 years, she did not have to wonder what Delphira needed, what problem she had to solve, what sacrifice she had to make. She dressed carefully, choosing her favorite cream blouse, the one Delphira always criticized, saying it made her look too old. She combed her hair in front of the mirror, and for the first time in years, truly looked at herself, not to search for wrinkles or gray hairs to conceal, but to recognize herself. There stood Marjoren Whitlow, 72 years old, widow mother, but above all, a woman. She walked towards downtown with firm steps. Every block she covered felt like a declaration of independence. The travel agency was on Main Street, between the pharmacy where she bought her medications and the bakery where she had bought bread every day for 40 years. Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you? The young woman behind the counter had a genuine smile, not the forced smile Marjoren had learned to recognize in people who saw her only as someone's grandmother. I want to take a trip for Christmas. How wonderful. Do you have a destination in mind? Are you traveling with family? I am traveling alone and I want to go as far away from here as possible. The agent, whose name was Janora Elstrom, according to her badge, showed no surprise or pity. She simply opened her computer and began to show her options. We have some beautiful packages for solo travelers. Are you interested in beaches, mountains, historic cities? Marjoren looked at the photographs Janora showed her. White sand beaches in Cancun, snowy mountains in Switzerland, cobblestone streets in Spain. For years, she had only seen these places in magazines she flipped through in the doctor's waiting room, thinking they were dreams reserved for other people, for people who somehow had the right to be happy. How much money are you planning to spend? Janora asked gently. Marjoren thought of the $15,000 she had documented in her notebook. $15,000 she had given, without hesitation, without asking for anything in return, believing that love could somehow be bought with sacrifice. I have $5,000, she said. And as she said it, she realized it was the first time in years she was talking about her money, not the money she had to set aside for Delphira's emergencies. Janora smiled more broadly. With $5,000, we can do something truly incredible. How about a tour of Spain and Italy? 3 weeks visiting Madrid, Barcelona, Rome, Florence, hotels with history meals, included guides who speak English. It is perfect for someone who wants to rediscover themselves, rediscover herself. The word resonated in Marjoren's chest like a bell. When was the last time she had done something purely to rediscover herself? I am interested. When would it depart? We have a departure on December 20th. You would return on January 10th. Exactly during the Christmas holidays, exactly when Delphira expected her to be cooking for 15 strangers in her own house. The irony was so perfect that Marjoren almost laughed. Do you need to think about it? Janora asked. No, Marjoren replied without hesitation. I want to book that trip right now. As Janora prepared the documents, Marjoren felt a mixture of terror and euphoria. It was the most impulsive decision she had ever made, but also the one that made the clearest sense. For the first time, she was choosing her own happiness over the expectations of others. I need a copy of your passport and a credit card for the deposit, Janora said. Marjoren took her passport from her purse. It was valid because she had renewed it last year with the secret hope of someday using it. Delphira had scoffed when she found out. Why are you renewing your passport, Mom? Where are you going to go? To Spain and Italy, Marjoren thought with a smile. I am going to Spain and Italy. When she left the travel agency with her ticket in hand, she felt like a different woman. It was not just the trip. It was what the trip represented, the decision to finally live for herself. Her cell phone rang. It was a message from Delphira. Mom Croyden says, if you do not cancel that ridiculous trip, he is going to tell his whole family your selfishness ruined Christmas. Is that what you want? Marjoren read the message twice. The first time with the old instinct of panic and guilt. The second time with a new cold clarity. Croyden, who had never worked more than 6 months in a row. Croyden, who had lived in her house for 3 months without paying rent. Croyden, who ate her food, used her electricity, her water, her internet, and now had the audacity to call her selfish. She typed a clear reply. Tell Croyden he can tell his family whatever he wants. I will be in Europe, so I will not hear him. The reply came immediately. Europe. Are you crazy? With what money? With my money, Marjoren wrote, and then, after a moment's thought, she added, the same money I have been spending on you for years. Her phone started ringing immediately. Delphira was calling her. Marjoren looked at the screen, saw her daughter's name, and for the very first time in her life, decided not to answer. She turned off the phone and put it carefully in her purse. She had more important things to do than listen to reproaches and manipulations. She had to buy luggage. She had to check what clothes to take to Europe in December. She had to finally start living the life she had been postponing for 72 years. As she walked toward the luggage store, Marjoren felt lighter with each step. It was as if she had been carrying an invisible backpack full of heavy stones for decades and had finally taken it off. For the first time in 30 years, she had something to look forward to, and it had nothing to do with making someone else happy. For the next 3 days, Marjoren kept her phone off, not because she was afraid of Delphira's calls, but because she had discovered something wonderful: silence. The silence of not having to explain her decisions to anyone, the silence of not having to justify why she deserved to be happy. She spent those days preparing for her trip like a teenager preparing for her first date. She bought a new suitcase, wine red, elegant, and practical. She bought clothes. She had never dared to wear a stylish beige coat that made her look sophisticated, brightly colored scarves, comfortable but pretty shoes for walking on European streets. At the downtown bookstore, she bought a guide to Spain and Italy and spent hours studying the maps, marking the places she wanted to visit. The Prado Museum in Madrid, where she would see for the first time the paintings she had admired in books for years, the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, that impossible church that seemed straight out of a dream, the Colosseum in Rome, where she would imagine the lives of people who had existed 2,000 years ago, the canals of Venice, where she would have a coffee while watching the gondolas pass by. For the first time in decades, she had something of her own to plan, something that did not involve the well-being of anyone but herself. On the fourth day, she decided to turn on her phone. She had 47 missed calls from Delphira, 12 voice messages, and 23 text messages. She read them all with a calm that surprised herself. "Mom, answer the phone. Mom, this is ridiculous. You are acting like a child. Croyden says, if you do not change your mind, we are going to have to find another solution. Mom, Croyden's family already bought their plane tickets. You cannot ruin Christmas for so many people. I am very disappointed in you. I never thought you would be so selfish. Mom, please, I need you." The messages followed the same predictable pattern. First anger, then emotional blackmail, then victimhood. It was like reading a manual on psychological manipulation. The saddest thing was that for years, that manual had worked perfectly on her, but not anymore. She dialed the number of her friend, Clarabeth Fenning, the only person she knew who had always spoken to her honestly, even when that honesty hurt. "Marjoren, where have you been? Delphira called me yesterday, asking if I knew where you were." She sounded hysterical. "B, I need to tell you something, and I need you to be honest with me." They met at the corner cafe, the same one where they had met once a week for the past 10 years. Clarabeth at 74 was still the direct and unfiltered woman she had been all her life. She had been widowed the same year as Marjoren, but had taken a completely different path. She had learned to drive, taken painting classes, traveled with tour groups, and even had a couple of discreet romances. "You look different," was the very first thing Clarabeth said when she saw her. "You look more like yourself." Marjoren told her everything. Delphira's call, the demand to organize dinner for 15 people, her refusal, the trip to Europe she had already booked. Clarabeth listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally until Marjoren finished. "And what do you think?" Marjoren asked. "Am I being selfish?" Clarabeth laughed a laugh that sounded like jingle bells. "Oh, Marjoren, do you know how many years I have been waiting for you to have this conversation with yourself?" "What do you mean?" "What do I mean? I have seen how Delphira treats you for years. I have seen how you let yourself be treated. And every time I have tried to tell you something, you defend her. But she is my daughter B. But she is going through a difficult time. But when you are a mother, sound familiar? What about you?" Dear viewers, have you ever kept making excuses for someone you love, even when deep down you knew they were taking advantage of you? Comment your thoughts below type number 1 if you relate. Marjoren felt her cheeks flush. Yes, it sounded familiar. She had used those same excuses for years to justify the unjustifiable. B, do you think I am a bad mother for going on a trip for Christmas? I think you are a woman who is finally learning the difference between being a good mother and being a useful mother. A good mother teaches her children to be independent, responsible, grateful. A useful mother does everything for her children until they forget how to do things for themselves. Clarabeth's words felt like raindrops on dry ground. Marjoren had been a useful mother, not a good mother. She had solved all of Delphira's problems until Delphira had lost the ability to solve her own. She had given so much unconditional love that Delphira had learned to take it for granted. But is not a mother supposed to always be available for her children? Marjoren Delphira is 33 years old. She is not a child. She is an adult woman who is married and has her own home. If at 33 she cannot organize a Christmas dinner without her mom doing everything, the problem is not you. The problem is that you never taught her she could do it herself. But after Robert died, I wanted to do everything for her, and that was fine when she was 15. But you kept being everything to her when she was 20, 25, and 30, and now she believes that is your job, that you exist to solve her problems. Marjoren remained silent, processing her friend's words. It was painful to recognize that perhaps she had loved Delphira in the wrong way, that by trying to protect her from everything, she had made her incapable of protecting herself. B. What do I do if she never speaks to me again? Then you will discover if she really loves you, or if she just loves what you do for her. The truth was simple and terrible. For years, Marjoren had confused being necessary with being loved. She had believed that as long as Delphira needed her, she would love her. But true love does not come with a list of requirements. True love is not conditioned on usefulness. Do you know what is the saddest thing about all this? Clarabeth asked. That Delphira does not even really know who you are. She only knows the version of you who solves problems and gives money. She does not know Marjoren the woman, the one who has her own dreams and deserves respect. For the first time in days, Marjoren felt like crying, but not out of sadness, rather out of relief. Someone saw her. Someone finally understood that she was more than just a maternal function. Go to Europe, Clarabeth said, taking her hand. Go and rediscover who you are when you are not being someone else's mom. The next day, Marjoren decided it was time to confront the situation directly. She could not go to Europe with the weight of an undeclared war pressing on her. She needed to talk to Delphira face to face one last time to set boundaries definitively. She turned on her phone and dialed her daughter's number. Mom, finally. Where have you been? I have been so worried. Croyden says you probably hit your head, and that is why you are acting so weird. There it was again. The false concern immediately followed by an explanation that made her look like a senile old woman. Croyden, of course, had a medical theory about her behavior. Croyden, who had never shown genuine concern for her well-being. Delphira, I need you to come to my house. We need to talk. Talk about what? About canceling that ridiculous trip and sorting out Christmas dinner like adults. Come at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and come alone. Alone. Why, Croyden also wants to talk to you. He says you need to understand the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation. According to Croyden, the man who had lived in her house for 3 months without paying rent now wanted to explain reality to her. Delphira, either you come alone or you both leave. I am not negotiating this. Delphira entered with a look of annoyance, like a teenager who had been unfairly punished. She sat on the sofa with her arms crossed, radiating resentment. Mom, this has to stop. You are acting like a spoiled child. The whole family is talking about you. What family? Delphira Croyden's family, who has never invited me to anything. The family who only knows me as the woman who cooks for free for their gatherings. That is not true. They appreciate you very much. When was the last time any of them asked me how I was? When was the last time they brought me a gift, or invited me to eat, or just called me to chat? Delphira opened her mouth to answer, but remained silent. Both knew the answer. Never. Delphira, for 5 years I have been your husband's family's unpaid domestic worker, and for 5 years you have been perfectly fine with that. That is not true. We always treat you. What, Delphira? You have always treated me with respect, always considered my feelings, always valued my time. Marjoren got up and went for her expense notebook. She placed it on the coffee table, open to the page where she had made the total. $15,000. That is what I have spent on you in 5 years. Money that came from my pension, from my savings, from the money I should be saving for my old age. And maybe one day these moments will be told like one of those revenge stories, but for me, it is just the truth. Delphira looked at the numbers with wide eyes. Mom, we never asked you to keep track. You are right. You never asked me to keep track, nor did you ever ask my permission before spending my money. You just assumed it was available to you. But we are family. Families help each other. Tell me, Delphira, how have you helped me in these last 5 years? Silence. A silence so profound you could hear the ticking of the wall clock in the kitchen. I am always here when you need me. When have I needed you? Delphira, give me one example. More silence. Delphira was desperately searching her memory for a time when she had given instead of only receiving. When you were sick, when I was sick with the flu last year, you did not come to see me, even once. I found out later you had been at the spa with Croyden's friends. Delphira's cheeks turned red. It is just, I did not know you were that bad. I sent you 3 messages saying I felt very sick. You never replied. Mom, you cannot nitpick every little thing. They are not little things, Delphira. They are 30 years of little things that accumulated into a relationship where I give everything and you receive everything. And the day I decide to set boundaries, I am the bad one. Delphira began to cry, not the genuine cry of someone who understands the harm they have caused, but the manipulative cry of someone who knows tears have worked before. Mom, you cannot leave for Christmas. You cannot leave me alone with this problem. Delphira, you created this problem. You told Croyden's family I was going to cook without asking me. You assumed my house, my time, and my money were at your disposal. This is not my problem to solve. But I do not know what to do. I do not know how to cook for so many people. Learn. Hire a catering service. Order food. There are 100 solutions that do not involve me. That costs money. And my work does not cost money. Does it? Delphira wiped her tears and changed tactics. Mom, if you do this, Croyden is going to be very upset with me. He says, if his family feels unwelcome, it will be my fault. Then maybe it is time Croyden learns to solve his own family problems instead of delegating them to his mother-in-law. You cannot talk about my husband like that. I can, and I will. Croyden is a 35-year-old man who has never organized a family gathering in his life because he has always had women do it for him. First, his mom Irelda, now me. When is he going to grow up? Delphira stood up from the sofa in a fury. I see what is happening. You are jealous because I am not just yours anymore. You are jealous of Croyden. The accusation was so absurd that Marjoren almost laughed. Delphira, I am not jealous of Croyden. I am tired of being his free domestic worker. You know what, Mom. Go on your stupid trip. We will sort this out without you. And when you come back and feel lonely, do not come crying. Delphira stormed out, slamming the door so hard the whole house shook. Marjoren stood in the middle of her living room, breathing deeply. For the first time in 30 years, she had said exactly what she thought, and the world had not ended. The following days passed in a strange calm. Marjoren expected to feel guilty. She expected doubts, remorse, the little voice inside, telling her she had been too harsh with Delphira. But that voice never came. Instead, she felt something she had not experienced in decades. Peace. She woke up each morning without the anxiety of wondering what problem of Delphira's she would have to solve that day. She ate breakfast in silence, reading the newspaper from cover to cover, something she had not done in years because she was always rushing to solve some family emergency. She took unhurried walks in the park, observing details she had ignored for years. The autumn colors on the trees, elderly couples feeding the ducks, children playing with a freedom she had almost forgotten existed. One afternoon, while organizing her clothes for the trip, the doorbell rang. She expected it to be Delphira, perhaps coming to apologize, perhaps coming to make one last manipulative attempt. But when she opened the door, she found Imelda Croyden's mother. Imelda was a 68-year-old woman, elegant and cold, who had always treated Marjoren with distant courtesy. In 5 years of knowing her, they had never had a conversation that lasted more than 10 minutes. "Marjoren's sorry to come without warning, but we need to talk." "Of course, Imelda, come in." Imelda entered and sat on the sofa with the rigid posture of someone who had come to perform an unpleasant mission. "Marjoren Delphira told me about the situation about your decision to go on a trip for Christmas. Yes, I am going to Spain and Italy. It is something I have wanted to do for years. I understand you want to travel, but do you not think the timing is inappropriate? We already have everything planned. My family already bought their plane tickets." Marjoren studied Imelda's face. There was no malice in her words, but there was that automatic assumption that other people's plans were more important than her own. "Imelda, can I ask you something? In these 5 years, how many times has your family invited me to something?" Imelda blinked. She clearly did not expect that question. "Well, we have always appreciated you opening your home for family gatherings. That is not what I asked. I asked how many times you have invited me to something, to your house, to a restaurant, to a celebration where I was the guest and not the hostess." The silence stretched. Imelda looked at her hands, clearly uncomfortable. "Marjoren, we always thought you enjoyed being the hostess. You are such a good cook, and your house is so welcoming. Imelda, for 5 years I have cooked for your family every Christmas, every birthday, every special occasion. I have spent thousands of dollars on food decorations, gifts. I have cleaned my house before and after every gathering. I have washed mountains of dishes, and in 5 years, no one in your family has genuinely thanked me. But Marjoren, we always, last year at Christmas dinner, your sister Vianette criticized my turkey, saying it was too dry. Your brother-in-law Croyden complained there was not enough beer. Your son Croyden burped at the table and then fell asleep on my sofa while I washed the dishes. Is that appreciation?" Imelda blushed. She clearly knew that everything Marjoren said was true, but she had never thought about it from the hostess's perspective. "Marjoren, I had not realized." "Of course you had not realized, because for 5 years, all of you have seen me as part of the furniture at family gatherings, the woman who cooks, cleans, and pays, but who does not have her own feelings. That is not true. Imelda, tell me something. Do you know my favorite color? Do you know what kind of music I like? Do you know if I have hobbies, dreams, interests that are not cooking for your family?" Imelda looked at her with wide eyes, clearly realizing she knew absolutely nothing about Marjoren as a person. "I had not thought—" "Exactly. You had not thought because for your family, I am not a person. I am a function." Imelda remained silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded different, smaller. "What can we do to fix this?" "Nothing." "Imelda, you cannot fix 5 years of disrespect with an apology, and I do not want you to fix it anymore. But Christmas dinner. Christmas dinner can be at a restaurant, at your house, at Delphira's house, or anywhere that is not mine. For 5 years you have taken for granted that my house was always available for your gatherings. This year, You will learn to make other plans. I know we have made mistakes, but do you not think cutting all contact is extreme? I am not cutting all contact. I am setting boundaries. I am telling you that I am no longer going to be your family's unpaid domestic worker. Irelda stood up to leave, but before reaching the door, she turned around. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Have you ever been happy doing all these things for us? The question hit Marjoren like a punch to the stomach, not because it was cruel, but because it was genuine, and the answer was devastatingly honest. No, Irelda, I have not been happy. I have been so busy being useful that I forgot how to be happy. Irelda nodded slowly, as if finally understanding something important. I hope you find that happiness on your trip. After Irelda left, Marjoren sat in her kitchen with a cup of tea. For the first time, someone from Croyden's family had recognized that she had a right to be happy. It was a small step, but it was something. She looked at the calendar on the wall. 5 days until her flight. 5 days to leave behind 30 years of being the woman who solved other people's problems and start being the woman who lived her own life. The phone rang. It was Clarabeth. How is everything, Marjoren? I think I am finally learning the difference between being needed and being respected. And how does that feel? Marjoren smiled, a genuine smile that no one could see, but that could be felt through the phone. It feels like freedom. The day before her flight, Marjoren woke up with a feeling of anticipation she had not felt since she was a child waiting for Christmas. She had everything ready. Her suitcases carefully packed her documents, organized in a special folder. The perfect clothes for every occasion she had imagined. But more important than all that, she had something she had lost decades ago: hope. She bathed calmly, chose her favorite dress, the terracotta color Delphira always criticized, saying it made her look too flashy, and put on makeup in front of the mirror, not to look younger or to hide wrinkles, but to celebrate the woman she had rediscovered. Every line on her face told a story, and for the first time in years, she was proud of that story. As she ate her last coffee at home for breakfast, the doorbell rang. Her heart skipped a beat, thinking it might be Delphira coming to make amends. But when she opened the door, she found something completely unexpected. An older gentleman, elegant with flowers in his hands. Mrs. Marjoren Whitlow. Yes, that is me. My name is Everin Thale. I am Janora's father, the travel agent who organized your trip to Europe. Marjoren looked at him confused. Why would Janora's father be at her door? Janora told me about you. Everin continued with a warm smile. She told me you are a brave woman who is going to travel alone to Europe for the very first time. And I am also planning the same trip, the same dates, almost the same itinerary. Marjoren felt her cheeks flush. And I was wondering if you would like some company, not for romance or anything pushy, he quickly clarified, noticing the surprised expression on her face. Just to have someone to share a meal with once in a while, someone to take your picture when you are in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It was so unexpected, so completely outside everything she had imagined for her trip, that Marjoren did not know what to say immediately. For months, she had visualized this trip as her declaration of independence, her moment of chosen solitude. But there was this man, Everin, offering her something she had not considered company without obligations. I do not know what to say. I was not expecting this. Everin smiled gently. Janora showed me a picture of you when you were at the agency. Not to invade your privacy, he hastened to explain, but because I had told her I hoped to meet interesting people on the trip. She told me you had a smile that showed strength and sadness at the same time. That description intrigued me. Marjoren truly looked at Everin for the first time. He was probably 75, with neatly combed silver hair, kind eyes, behind elegant glasses, and a posture that spoke of dignity without arrogance. He was wearing a brown wool sweater and well-pressed trousers. He was not handsome in the traditional way, but there was something about him that radiated calm and respect. "Can I ask why you are traveling alone?" "My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. During the last year of her illness, I promised her that if she left before me, I would not stay home feeling sorry for myself. I promised her I would travel, that I would see places, that I would live, for both of us." His voice softened. "This is my first big trip without her." Marjoren felt an immediate connection to his story. Both were escaping versions of themselves they no longer wanted to be. Both were looking to rediscover themselves in distant places. "And what do you hope to find in Europe?" Everin smiled. "I hope to find the man I was before I became just Lorena's husband. I hope to remember what I liked to do when I was not taking care of someone else." The words resonated in Marjoren's heart like bells. It was exactly what she had been feeling, but had not known how to express. "Everin, I have to be honest with you. This trip is very important to me. It is the first time in 30 years I am doing something completely for myself. I do not want to compromise it with romantic expectations." "Oh, Mrs. Marjoren," he interrupted gently, "I do not want complications either. I just want the possibility of sharing an intelligent conversation once in a while and having someone tell me if I have food in my teeth after eating pasta in Rome." Marjoren laughed a genuine laugh that surprised herself. It had been so long since she had laughed like that, without reservations, without worrying about how it sounded or whether it was appropriate. "You know what, Everin? I think I would like that company. Seriously, seriously, but with one condition. Tell me. Each of us pays our own expenses. No old-fashioned chivalry where the man feels obligated to pay for everything. I have my own money and I want to use it." Everin smiled more broadly. "Mrs. Marjoren, I think we are going to get along very well." He gave her the flowers, white and yellow daisies, simple and beautiful, and left not without first giving her his card with his phone number and the details of his hotel in Madrid. After he left, Marjoren stood with the flowers in her hands, feeling like a teenager. Not because Everin was a romantic interest, it was still too soon to think about that, but because someone had seen something more in her than a useful mother or an available grandmother. Someone had seen an interesting woman. She put the flowers in a vase and placed them on the kitchen table. Tomorrow, she would be on a plane to Madrid, and for the first time in decades, she did not know exactly what to expect. That uncertainty that once would have terrified her now excited her. The phone rang. It was Delphira. "Mom, your flight is tomorrow, right?" "Yes, tomorrow." There was a long pause. "Mom, I do not want you to leave angry with me. I am not leaving angry, Delphira. I am leaving free. Can we talk when you get back? We can talk when you are ready to truly listen." Another pause. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, Delphira, but I am no longer going to confuse love with unlimited availability." After hanging up, Marjoren prepared her last dinner at home before the trip. Nothing elaborate, just a simple soup and a salad. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, aware that tomorrow she would be dining in Madrid. For the first time in 30 years, she had something that was completely hers, a future full of possibilities. 3 weeks later, Marjoren was sitting on a small terrace overlooking the Mediterranean in Barcelona with a cup of café con leche that tasted exactly as she had dreamed it would. The late Mediterranean sun caressed her face as she wrote in a new journal she had bought in Madrid, something she had not done since she was a teenager. Day 21 in Europe, she wrote in careful script. Today I understood something important. Happiness is not a prize you receive after years of sacrifice. Happiness is a choice you make every day. Evelyn approached with 2 ice creams, a lemon, one for her, and a chocolate one for him. During the 3 weeks, they had developed an easy and comfortable friendship. He was a perfect travel companion, cultured without being pretentious, funny without being a clown, attentive without ever being intrusive. They had walked together through the Prado Museum, gotten lost together in the streets of Rome. They had laughed together when he tried to speak Italian with a Spanish accent and ended up asking for shoes with cheese instead of pasta with cheese. Writing your memoirs, Evelyn asked, sitting in the chair next to her. Writing my new story, Marjoren replied, the one that starts at 72. Her phone had rung several times during the trip, messages from Delphira, some desperate, others furious, and others manipulative. The first few days, she had read them all, feeling sharp pangs of guilt. But gradually, she had developed a new perspective. Delphira's problems were no longer emergencies she had to solve. They were lessons Delphira had to learn for herself. The last message she had read, sent 2 days ago, was different. Mom, we had to cancel Christmas dinner. Croyden and I had a big fight about who was going to take care of everything. In the end, we decided we were not ready to organize something so big. His parents are disappointed with us, not with you. I think I understand a little better why you left. I hope you are doing well. Marjoren had read that message 3 times. She felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just a quiet confirmation that she had made the right decision. Delphira was learning, perhaps for the very first time in her adult life, that actions have consequences and that there would not always be someone else to solve her problems. What are you thinking about? Evelyn asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. That for 70 years I believed my worth as a person depended on how useful I was to others. I believed love was earned by being indispensable. And now I know that true love does not have to be earned. It either exists or it does not. And people who truly love you do not disappear when you stop being useful. Evelyn nodded. During the 3 weeks they had shared many deep conversations. He had told her about the years he spent caring for Lorena, how he had gradually lost his individual identity in the process of being the perfect husband. She had told him about 30 years of being the perfect mother until she realized that perfection had made her invisible as a person. Do you know what is the strangest thing? Marjoren said. During this entire trip, I have not cooked a single meal for anyone else, and I do not miss it. I thought I would miss it, but I absolutely do not. What do you miss? I miss the version of myself that existed before I became a maternal function. The woman who read books for pleasure, who had her own opinions about movies, who dreamed of traveling. That woman had been asleep for 30 years, but she was not dead. The sun began to set over the Mediterranean, painting the sky with colors that had no name. Tomorrow would be her last day in Europe before returning home. But home no longer sounded like a prison. It sounded like a place where she could continue to be the woman she had rediscovered on this journey. Evelyn, can I confess something to you? Of course. When I was young, before I got married, I wanted to be an art teacher. I never told anyone because it seemed like a silly dream. After I got married, after Delphira was born, after Robert died, there were always reasons to postpone that dream. And now I think 72 years is not too late to be who I always wanted to be." Evren smiled. "You know what? I have a confession too. I always wanted to learn to play the piano. Lorena used to say we were too old to learn new things. What do you plan to do about it?" "I think I am going to buy a piano." They laughed together, the laughter of two people who had discovered that life does not end when you turn 70, that perhaps in some strange way it is just beginning. That night, Marjoren stayed awake in her hotel room, looking out the window at the lights of Barcelona. Tomorrow she would return home, but not as the same woman who had left. She would return as Marjoren Whitlow, not as Delphira's mother, or Croyden's former domestic worker. She would return as a woman who had learned that saying no was not selfishness, it was survival. Her phone vibrated. A message from Clary Beth. "How is the new Marjoren?" She replied, "The new Marjoren is learning that it is never too late to start a new life." The next day on the plane back, as she watched Europe disappear beneath the clouds, Marjoren wrote in her journal, "Today I do not need permission to live. Today I know that respect is not begged for, it is demanded. Today I understand that freedom is not doing what you want, but not doing what you do not want. And tomorrow, when I land at home, I will begin the rest of my life." She closed the journal and leaned back in her seat. For the first time in 72 years, the future belonged entirely to her. It was not revenge. It was liberation. And it felt exactly like flying. 6 months after my return from Europe, I am sitting here in my new art studio with hands stained with acrylic paint and a heart lighter than it has been in decades. I never thought that at 73 I would be learning to mix colors and discovering that I have a natural talent for painting landscapes. The house feels different now. It is no longer a place where I await desperate calls or unexpected visits asking for favors. It is my sanctuary, my space where every object is where I want it to be, and every decision is mine. The silence no longer frightens me. It embraces me. Delphira and I talk now, but differently. At first, it was difficult. There were tears, reproaches, and mutual accusations, but something changed when I stopped defending myself and simply maintained my boundaries. She had to learn to relate to me as a person, not as a resource. She is still learning, but there is progress. She asks me how I am before telling me her problems. She invites me to lunch without expecting me to pay the bill. These are small changes, but they are significant. Croyden. Well, Croyden is still Croyden, but he is no longer my problem. Delphira is slowly learning that her husband's problems are her husband's responsibility, not her mother-in-law's. It has been a costly lesson for her, but an absolutely necessary one. Evren visits me once a week. We drink tea together, share stories from our classes. He did indeed buy his piano and is learning to play simple songs. And sometimes we go to the movies like two friends who enjoy each other's company without complicated expectations. I do not know if someday it will be something more. And for the very first time in my life, that uncertainty feels beautiful instead of distressing. I have learned that self-love is not selfishness. It is emotional survival. For years, I confused sacrifice with love, believing that the more I gave, the more I would be loved. Now I understand that true love blossoms only when both people respect each other enough to maintain their individuality. My bank account has grown. When you stop being the family bank, it is incredible how much money you save. I have used some of those savings to remodel my house for my painting classes and for small luxuries I once considered unnecessary. A monthly massage, new books, fresh flowers for my table, things that make every single day feel like a celebration of simply being alive. The most surprising thing has been discovering that I was never invisible. I had simply stopped seeing myself. When I started to value myself, others also began to do so. My neighbors greet me differently now. The butcher asks me about my paintings. The librarian saves art books, especially for me. I have learned that setting boundaries does not destroy relationships. It either improves them or eliminates them, and both outcomes are good. Relationships that improve become more authentic. Those that are eliminated probably were never worth keeping in the first place. Some days, I still feel sadness for the lost years, for the woman I once was, who believed herself indispensable, when in reality, she was interchangeable. But that sadness no longer paralyzes me. I accept it, embrace it for what it is, and then I let it go. The past taught me that the present belongs only to me. I look at my hands as I write these words, hands that cooked thousands of meals for people who took them for granted, hands that cleaned messes I did not make, hands that signed checks for other people's dreams. Now these same hands create art, record their own thoughts, and applaud personal achievements that finally belong to me alone. The woman who boarded that plane to Madrid was a retired domestic worker who had forgotten her own name. The woman who returned is Marjoren Whitlow, artist, traveler, friend, and above all, a complete woman who does not need anyone's approval to validate her existence. I still wake up every morning without knowing exactly what the day will hold. But now that uncertainty is exciting, not terrifying, because I have finally learned the most important lesson of all, that I deserve to write my own story, and that it is never too late to change the ending. In a world filled with revenge stories where people seek justice by hurting those who wrong them, I have discovered that sometimes the deepest form of justice is simply reclaiming your own life. When I sit quietly with a brush in my hand, colors spreading across the canvas, I feel the woman I used to hide away finally breathing again. I feel whole. I feel alive. And I know now that freedom is not about running from others. It is about choosing myself. If you were in my place, what would you do? Would you have stayed in silence or chosen to walk away? I would love to hear your reflections, your stories, and your lessons. Please share them in the comments. I genuinely want to listen and connect with you. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and press the notification bell so you will not miss the next story. On the screen, you will find another video that I deeply recommend, one that carries a message just as powerful as this one. Thank you so much for your support, for listening, and for walking with me through this journey. Until we meet again in the next story.